So this is Cody Porter. The purpose of this video is I just want to create a simple report server project and deploy a report to SharePoint. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through the steps, kind of how I structure my solutions. First thing we're going to do is you're going to open up Visual Studio 2012. You need to make sure that you have Data Tools 2012 installed. If you do not have Data Tools 2012 installed, this business intelligence section will not be displayed as a template, so you won't be able to create a report server project. So I start off by naming my solution WRBC. We'll call it the Assumed Reinsurance Group. For the project name, we're going to say Company A. Oops. I'm not going to add it to source control, but that's something you probably should do. I'm not sure what you guys' environments will look like, but we use TFS. So we're going to create a project. It's going to take a little bit to set up the solution for us. And then right away we can come in here, we can see our solution is WRBC Assumed Reinsurance Group. We have Company A. You can obviously add more projects too, so if we wanted to add Company B, come out here, you can do Company B. Now you might be asking yourself, why would I create multiple projects? And it really just kind of depends on what your goal is. So per our discussion yesterday, we talked about Company A could be your solution to your team site. But if you wanted to actually deploy to each company's SharePoint site, you'd want to probably create multiple projects to do this. Now, when we get further along, you'll kind of start understanding that process. But first off, I just want to add a new data source. I'm going to create one that I'm familiar with. Alright, so we've created a shared data source. That means we can now use it on our reports. We're going to give it a name, so I try and put server name and then hyphen database. Credentials, use this, perfect. We'll click OK. So now we've created a shared data source. Now we can add a report. So we're going to select our shared data source in this option. We're going to click Next. Query Builder, we're just going to do something simple. Every program you ever write is like this. Select Hello World. We'll say SharePoint. Next. Tabular. Available fields is SharePoint. We'll do Forest. Port name, we'll just say Hello World. Click Finish. We can click Preview, and we should see Hello World show up here. Perfect. So now, so we've created a report. It's not hitting really any data source, but we just walked you through that process of creating that stuff. Next step is now we want to deploy this to our SharePoint site. So one of the things you can do here is you can right-click on Company A or your project, go down to Properties, and what happens here is you see the deployment section here, and you have target server URL, report folder, data source folder, dataset folder, and that's what you're going to need to build out. You also see all these configurations in there. One of my first steps that I personally do, I'll come in here and I will actually edit these. So I will change this one. We'll remove these. Yes. Yes. We're going to close this one. And we're going to say new. We're going to create a prod. Copy settings from release. New. We're going to create a test one. New, and we're going to create a dev one. This is just going to be kind of local. We'll copy from prod. Alright, so we're going to go back into edit. One thing that's kind of weird is you can't, there has to be at least one, so I had to create those other three before I could remove the release one. Click close. So now when we click up here, we have our dev, test, and prod. So for our dev, we don't want it to do deployments. So we'll unselect that. And then we'll go to prod, which we do want to do deployments, and then test, we do want to do deployments as well. So now when we're in our configuration here, we will, actually we're going to go back into that. We're going to get rid of some of those ones that show up in that drop down. Click here, we'll click edit, we're going to remove the debug local, and the release. It just cleans up our drop downs. It's easier to figure out which one you actually are selecting for. So click close, we have that. Now when we come in here, we just see dev, prod, test. So if we wanted to do prod, it will actually change these deployment things. And I'll show you the importance of that here in a second. So we're going to do prod. I actually tested some of these directories already, so you should be able to just kind of copy and paste what I did. I'll send some details so you can just copy and paste this information too. Target server URL, reports, we don't have report parts, but if you did, you could deploy to that. We'll do our data connections. Alright, we'll go back to properties. Sorry about that. Back to our prod. We're going to do our data connections. We don't have shared data sets, but you just kind of do the same folder structure. So we'll just click apply here, click OK. So keep in mind we do this to our prod configuration. So what that means is now when we want to deploy for company A, what we can do is we can change this up here to prod, click start, and what we'll see down here is it's going to start deploying. And the site it's deploying to, the data source and the report, it loads it up. There's our Hello World report out there on your guys' site. That's how easy it is to deploy out to this. And that pretty much walks you kind of through the deployment process. Now you'll definitely want to build out these configurations. So for your test one, you'd build out a different set of parameters. So you go to the test site. The whole goal of this is just to kind of walk you through how to build your structure, how to set up these configurations so you can do single-click deployments. There's some other things you kind of got to pay attention to when you're deploying stuff, and we can do a quick talk about that too. If you go into properties, you'll see these two: overwrite data sets, overwrite data sources. So if you set these to false and then you update your data source, what's actually in SharePoint is never going to get updated. So you can end up kind of hitting your head against the wall trying to figure out why my report's not working. So you gotta be aware of these. Some people set them always to true. I just like to be aware of them and be cognizant of when I need to change them and not. But I like to do false because anytime I'm removing stuff or overlaying stuff unnecessarily, I prefer not to do that. But that's pretty much it. It is simple to deploy. It's easy to, once you set up these single-click deployments, anybody that comes into this solution will be able to just select their configuration and click deploy. One of the other interesting things is, I'll show you kind of some of the other stuff that people are doing. We go to MyBPM, they have a whole list of reports out here. They just display it right on their home page. You can go, this is all links, so you can go right into the reporting section. You can click reports. We have tons of parameters and all sorts of things. We do rollups, lots of row groups. You come out here, you can have nested information. You can do all sorts of things out here. The other kind of example we have is My BAP View. You come out to their homepage, and they've actually created web parts, areas in which they're just displaying metrics. As soon as they come to the page, you don't have to click a link, you don't have to do anything. This is easier than it looks. You still create the report, you deploy it the same way, it's just you create a web part that actually embeds the results into the page. But that's pretty much it. That's all you need to understand to really do the deployment. Set up your configuration so you can do single-click deployments. And that's it. Thanks for your time.